If you are running a federally funded child nutrition program right now or adult care program, and it feels like the compliance work is eating you alive, I need to tell you something. The exhaustion that you're feeling is not because you are bad at this. You're not terrible at your job. It is because the system you are inside of was designed to produce that exact level of exhaustion and overwhelm that you're feeling. And nobody has told you the truth about what to do instead. Hi, I'm Alana Jones, and welcome to the CNOS Briefings. So, before I go one step further, I want to name exactly who I'm talking to. I am talking to the person who runs a federally funded child nutrition or adult nutrition program in an under resourced, underserved community, maybe CACFP, National School Lunch, Summer Feeding, Head Start, wherever federal dollars flow to feed children and adults. And you are the one holding the responsibility. You are possibly a woman, you are possibly a person of color, you are possibly a person who took over a program that was in shambles when you got it. You are probably the one who has been told for years that compliance is just about completing the paperwork. And if you would just get organized, everything would be fine. But here's the problem: you've been organized, you've reorganized, and you have been more than organized. And yet you are still exhausted and overwhelmed. That is who I am talking to. I am not talking to the wonderful consultants who make their living selling you binders. I'm not talking to the state agencies who are just doing their job of sending you the letters. And I am not talking to the vendors who want to sell you software that will supposedly solve everything. I'm talking to you, the one sitting behind the desk, the one in the kitchen cooking the food, the one completing all the paperwork and the claims and the reimbursements, the one who has been carrying way more than any person should be carrying. And I need to tell you something. Then this may not be something you've heard from anyone else in the industry, but I've been where you are, and not in theory, not in adjacent programs, but I've sat in your same exact seat, making your decisions and making your mistakes. So let me tell you the first story that will make what I am talking about make sense. So, this is a story that happened during one of the most challenging seasons of my personal life, not just my career. I was running a fairly large daycare. I had multiple employees. I had been in the field for years, and there was real money moving through our program and a real high level of accountability. And I thought I really had it together, honestly. And one morning, I remember this exactly. I woke up and I was really uncomfortable. I wasn't sick. I wasn't anxious in any way, but I was just uncomfortable in my own body, in my own spirit. And I knew something was off. And I clearly heard something. And, I'm a believer, so I know who it was. I heard the Holy Spirit tell me these exact words: check your milk receipts. And what a strange thing for the Holy Spirit to say to me. So, I sat there for a few minutes. I said, that's just weird. And I heard it again: check your milk receipts. And that was it. So, I'm getting this weird conversation here, and I start calling around. I call my director, I call my lead staff, and I said, hey, can you gather the milk receipts? And I'm like, sure. And they said, yeah, we'll get it when we get there, because it's way early in the morning. And I just wasn't feeling right. So I went ahead and got dressed, and I ran to, well, drove to my center. And see, I made that move because when God gives you a specific instruction, you do not sit around asking why. You just simply obey. So I got to my office and I began to pull the milk receipts together. And I started reconciling them against what had been ordered because, I was doing the ordering. I was doing the ordering. I was doing the shopping. I was checking the claim at the end of the month. I'm handling everything. And so I get these receipts together and I look at what was served and I look at the receipts and I look at what was claimed and I look at the receipts and then I see what was delivered. What I saw in those receipts was that although I had did all the due diligence of ordering that milk. For the entire month, the distributor had not delivered. And it was not something that I had caught before I submitted that claim. It was not something that my staff had caught as they were serving the meals. And y'all, by the end of the time I had done my self audit, I had 90 gallons of unaccounted milk. Yeah, yes, 90 gallons, almost 100. I mean, just an insensible amount of milk that was not delivered. An insensible amount of milk that was not accounted for, that was not served to the children that I had claimed to have served. You see, I had taken now federal dollars that could be traced back to a child, that could be traced back to a meal count sheet, and I have said that meal was complete. And y'all, to ice this cake, I am extremely distraught. I'm talking to my staff. I'm asking what happened. We are way past the time of claim, and y'all, just as I couldn't have wrote the story myself. And within that morning. By that afternoon, one of my favorite people from the State Department was walking through my door. Yes, yes, by the end of the day, I had received an unannounced audit. And I heard her when she came through the door of the center. She said, "Miss Jones." I mean, she knew me. She knew me. And my heart dropped to the bottom of my feet. I couldn't believe that morning I'd had this divine revelation, only for by the afternoon to have received a serious deficiency. A serious deficiency. She looked at me and she said, "Miss Jones, 90 gallons?" And all I could do was sit there in silence, because I had no way of justifying a mistake for 90 gallons of milk. And you see, I'm not a bad person. My people weren't bad people. No one had physically stolen the milk. The problem was the system that was supposed to track that milk from delivery to service to claim had holes in it. And those holes were my responsibility. And I had two choices in that moment. I could blame the staff. I could blame the vendor. I could blame the state agency for even making the program so hard. But the truth of it was that I had to take responsibility on my own shoulders and change how I ran my program, because the milk was never the problem. The staff was never the problem. And the vendors were never the problem. The real problem was the leadership. So here's what I need you to understand about that day. I did not fail because I was disorganized. I did not fail because I did not care. I did not fail because I had not been trained. I failed because I was running the program the way the industry told me to run it. And the way the industry tells you to run a compliance program is designed to fail. This is what I call the compliance trap. And I want to define it for you clearly, because you may be inside of it right now and not know. So the compliance trap is this. You are told that if you follow the rules, complete the paperwork, and pass the reviews, everything will be fine. You are told that compliance is a checklist. You are told that compliance is documentation. You are told compliance is what you do when a reviewer is coming. But none of that is entirely true. Compliance is not simply a checklist. It is not simply documentation. It is not something you prepare for just when the reviewer is coming. Compliance is a system. It's a living, breathing, operational system that either exists inside of your program every day or it does not exist at all. See, the milk in my story was not a documentation problem. It was a systems problem. You see, there was no living system inside of my program that could tell me in real time whether the milk we paid for and ordered was reaching the children we served. And here's the part the industry that does not want you to know. The way most compliance is taught in this country produces the exact conditions that make serious deficiency findings inevitable. You are being taught reactive compliance. You are being taught paperwork compliance. You are being taught the compliance version of putting out fires every day. What you actually need is operational compliance, a system that makes the paperwork a natural byproduct of running the program well, a system where the milk is tracked because the tracking is already inside the operation, not because you remember to check the receipts. Checking the receipts is reactive. The compliance trap keeps you exhausted, keeps you reactive. It keeps you one review away from a serious deficiency finding you never saw coming. And it is not your fault that you are inside of it, but it is your responsibility to get out. This is what brings me to the second story. So I want you to picture this. I am 3 months into my dream job. It's February 2019, Alabama. I am the director of a K-12 child nutrition program. This is what I worked for since I think I started my degree in um, for my master's in nutrition. And, by this time, I've been in child nutrition several years. I worked as a dietitian, I worked as a field technician, I worked as a cafeteria manager, and I had worked as a director in a program where I had half director duties. I mean, I got it together at this time. I'm like, oh my God, I'm finally going to be a K-12 child nutrition director. And I am super new and super excited. So I have the credentials, I have the experience. I've been preparing my whole career for a role like this, and I am just over the moon. Then one morning, the state agency shows up for an unannounced administrative review. Now, every director knows this can happen, and you're supposed to be ready. That is the whole point of an unannounced review. But when it happens to you for the first time on your watch, 3 months into your dream job, you feel it in your body before you ever understand it in your brain. So I remember standing there while the reviewer just came through the door. They asked for the documentation. And what was even wilder about this, y'all, my life is just simply wild, is that morning I was heading to training for that exact program they were looking at. We were K-12 child nutrition, but they were there for the after school program audit of the CACFP program. And I had CACFP training that morning. So I'm new, I'm confused, and I'm like, okay, the auditor's here. And I'm so crazy, y'all. I just go ahead and go to the training and leave the auditor there on their own. I know, don't judge me. I was young and dumb. Not very young, but kind of dumb. And so I went to the training. I actually came back and they were still there and they had looked over everything. And they said, oh, menus look good, production records look good, meal counts look good, procurement look good. And so I'm like, okay, this is working out. Then they went to the program forms, the forms that we use to sign up to be on the CACFP program. And there was the problem. Y'all, there was a box on my CACFP application that said we were serving meals to an age group that weren't even enrolled in the school system. It said that we were serving pre-K students and we didn't even have that particular program at that time. And so, I look at the box, I look at the auditor and I say, oh yeah, we're not serving that age group. Y'all, but I had signed my name saying that we were. I said to the reviewer, yeah, we're not serving that group. But when the reviewer looked at that box and then began to start to trace that information back, they began to trace years and years and years of this box being signed off on. And I realized something that I hadn't realized when I signed. That box had been checked and signed for 12 years before I ever touched it. There had been 2 audits before me that had signed off and cleared it. There had been more than one director before me that had signed off on it. And this was multiple years of oversight. And every single one of those years had a problem. The reviewer looked at me and said, "You just signed off on 12 years of oversight." I was signing off on 12 years of oversight that had happened before I even walked into the room. And now I owned it. 3 months into my dream job, in front of my staff, with a reviewer holding 12 years of paperwork, I learned what compliance really cost in that moment. You see, compliance is never just what you do. Compliance is always what you inherited from the people who came before you and from the staff who are also among you. See, let me name what happened in that room. I was punished professionally, financially, reputationally for 12 years of decisions I had no part in making. I cannot go back and tell the auditors who checked that box before me to check it more carefully. I cannot go back and warn the directors who had signed it that they were signing something they did not fully understand. All I could do was carry the weight of what had already happened and rebuild the system so that no one who came after me would inherit the same trap. This is what I want you to hear. If you are running a program right now that you inherited from someone else, if you are working with staff that you have inherited, if you are working in a culture where they're always saying, well, this is the way that we've always done it, let me tell you something. The compliance trap does not just catch you for what you did wrong. It catches you for what the person before you did wrong. It catches you for the people around you and what they're doing wrong, and for what the person before them did wrong, and for what the person before them did wrong. You inherited the whole chain the day that you signed your name to be the director. And this is where the compassion in this teaching lives, because most of the operators I work with are not carrying their own mistakes. They are carrying inherited mistakes, and no one has told them that this is what they're carrying. They're looking around, they're stressed, they are unsure of what to do. They see their staff, they're talking to their staff, but they realize they're not getting anywhere. So let me say this: you do not have to be perfect. You do not have to be you do not have to have created every problem you're trying to solve. You do not have to answer for decisions that you had no part in. But you do have to build a system that stops the chain. That is your responsibility, not the responsibility of the people who came before you, not the responsibility of the state agency, not the responsibility of the reviewer, and not the responsibility of the staff who you are unwilling to correct. Building the system is what breaks this inheritance. Building the system is what protects the person who comes after you from signing the same box that you signed. This is what the Child Nutrition Operating System, CNOS, this is what the Child Nutrition and Adult Care Operating System, CNOS, is built to do. It's built to take a program that was inherited into a compliance trap and turn it into a program that lives inside an operational discipline that survives you. That is the work of the next 7 episodes of this series. 6 pillars, 1 operating system, CACFP, National School Lunch Programs, a methodology that transforms compliance from a paperwork burden into a working discipline. But before I get to that, I have to tell you my third story. And y'all, stick with me. I got a lot of stories, okay? I got over 20 years of stories, okay? But I tell these stories because you need to understand why I built any of this in the first place. So early in my career, I worked in a place where I was one of very few Black women in leadership positions. This is important context because what I'm about to tell you cannot be understood without it. There was a white male peer of mine, same title, same responsibilities. We worked side by side. He liked me in a way. He would compliment me. He would say things that sounded like encouragement. He liked when I straightened my hair. He told me so. He liked when I dressed a certain way. He told me so. And one day, I did not remember exactly what preceded it. He said to me directly, Alana, you know you are never going to be a director, right? He did not finish the sentence, but he did not have to. Because in the industry we were in, everyone knew what came after that sentence. You are never going to be a director because you're a woman, you are Black, you do not have the right kind of network, you will not play the right kind of game, you will not straighten your hair enough, you will not soften your voice enough, you will not disappear enough into the room to make the people who make the decisions comfortable enough to promote you. I did not argue with him. I did not tell him he was wrong. I did not perform any of the things a woman is expected to perform when a man tells her what her ceiling is. I just kept working. Years later, when I was running my own consulting practice, when I had certified operators calling me for expertise, when I was building the methodology that would become CNOS, I thought about him, not with anger, but with something a little bit more quieter. Because he did not know that when he told me I would never be a director, he was telling me exactly what I was going to build. He thought he was closing a door on me. He was actually handing me the fuel to build my own building. I did become a director multiple times in multiple organizations before I decided that the director title was not big enough for what I was going to do. And now I train directors, I certify directors, I build the operating system that directors run their programs on. So to him, wherever he is now, I want to say this. You were right that I would not be the kind of director you imagine. You were wrong about everything else. Listen, I told you that third story for a reason. Because if you are the sister in the field I have been describing this whole episode, then you have had someone tell you that you would never. Someone told you that you were not enough. Someone told you that this ceiling was your ceiling. You have been running a federally funded child nutrition program in an under-resourced, underserved community while carrying the weight of every voice that told you that you did not belong at the head of the table. You have been building compliance systems while people who never had to build anything watched to see if you would fail. You have been carrying inherited mistakes and being blamed for them while the people who made the mistakes just moved on. And nobody in this industry has built anything specifically for you. They have built tools for large sponsors with legal teams. They have built software for organizations and with IT departments and people to run it. They have built consulting practices for programs that can afford to hire someone to do the work for them. But nobody has built the operating system that a woman running an under-resourced, underserved program needs to protect what she has already built with her bare hands. So, over the next 7 episodes, I am going to teach you the child and adult care nutrition operating system, CNOS. 6 pillars, 1 methodology, a framework that turns your program from reactive firefighting into operational discipline. In episode 2, we'll talk about the first pillar, documentation systems, how your paperwork stops being a burden and becomes evidence. In episode 3, we'll talk about the second pillar, menu and meal pattern, the 4-document chain that makes your claims defensibles. In episode 4, we'll talk about the third pillar, procurement, the vendor trust triangle that protects you from procurement findings. In episode 5, we'll talk about the fourth pillar, financial oversight, 3 views of your program that no one can dispute. In episode 6, we'll talk about the fifth pillar, staff training. Ugh. 3 layers that make your program survive any staff transition. In episode 7, we'll talk about the sixth pillar, audit readiness, the prep, posture, and practice that turn reviews from crisis into confirmation. And in episode 8, we'll have the invitation, and I'll tell you what comes next. Every episode will have teaching. Every episode will have a story. Every episode will give you something you can use in your program this week. And I am not going to try to sell you anything until the last episode because the teaching itself has to be worth it, worth your time first. If what you have heard in this episode has landed anywhere in your body, If any of what I have said has felt like it was said for you specifically, I want you to do one thing. Stay with me for the next 7 episodes. Do not just watch them. Watch them and then look at your own program with new eyes. Ask yourself, where is the milk in my program? Where's the box that I signed off without knowing what I was signing? Where is the voice that told me I would never? And what have I been building anyway? Because the operating system I am about to teach you is not just a compliance methodology. It is what happens when a woman who was told she would never builds anyway. And is what will protect your program long after the people who told you that you would never have forgotten that they ever said it. Before I close this episode, I want to speak directly to you. If you have carried compliance work that no one has thanked you for, if you have inherited problems that were never yours to create, if you have been told in words or in silence that you would never, and you have kept going anyway, I see you. What you are doing is sacred work. Feeding children and adults with federal dollars in communities that have been forgotten is sacred work. Building compliance systems that protect that work is sacred work. Standing at the head of a table where people did not think you belonged is sacred work. And you are not alone in it anymore. I built a child nutrition and adult nutrition operating system because someone had to. But I'm teaching it to you because you are the one who is going to run it. You're not late. You're not behind. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. And for the sister who comes after you, and for the children you are already feeding today, honor the purpose behind the plate, strengthen the process, and lead with confidence.